1st is Earth Overshoot Day. It's 2 days earlier than it was last year. That's the day on which we being the human race, have consumed all of the productivity of the entire planet in less than a year. Or at least all of the productivity that's available to us, basically. Earth Overshoot Day marks the point at which consumption exceeds the capacity of nature to regenerate. It was August 3rd last week. It's August 1st this year, tomorrow. And in part, this has to do with global climate change. And climate change is, in fact, it's the major driver, or one of the major drivers. As I say, 7 billion humans on Earth and a steady move toward more and more meat consumption are big drivers, huge drivers. But they're both driving climate change. So you get this kind of dog chasing its tail feedback loop. I got an email from the Pentagon. This is from the Office of the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR. And it's a quarterly report to Congress. The email is about the key points. It goes to a whole bunch of different military places, and then they send it out to the press. And I'm on their press list, and so here it is. This isn't like, top secret stuff. This is, although, and here's, I guess, the question. We've got, serious stuff going on right now, and it's just not being reported in our media. Climate change will kill more people than even George W. Bush did. Actually is, as we speak. And in fact, I want to get to that in just a second about Afghanistan. Meanwhile, oh, by the way, coming up on the program today, Russ Baker on war powers, Greg Palast on the Kansas primary, Trump and his billionaire buddies robbing us blind. We'll be getting to all that. But back to Afghanistan. I just got this report from the Pentagon. And they point out, they first of all, they say the situation in Afghanistan is consistent, quote, this is from the Department of Justice, the DOJ, views the situation in Afghanistan as consistent with a largely lawless, weak, and dysfunctional government, with many corruption cases languishing due to the lack of political will rather than the capacity of the Afghan government. But then it gets interesting. They say 2/3 of Afghanistan's provinces are experiencing a drought due to precipitation deficit of 70% in recent months. USAID has told SIGAR that precipitation and snowpack levels have been so low. Keep in mind, snowpack, is like the water battery. It's the charge system. Here in Portland, the mountains around us get a lot of snow in the winter, and then during the summer that snow melts, and that feeds the rivers, right? Same thing in Afghanistan. The snowpack levels have been so low that in many areas the current rain-fed winter wheat crop has been effectively lost. The UN estimates that over the next 6 months, more than 2 million people will face severe food insecurity. Severe food insecurity is diplomat speak for starvation. Let me read this sentence again. The UN estimates that over the next 6 months, more than 2 million people will face severe food insecurity and will be in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. Why? Because the climate is changing in Afghanistan. But it's not just in Afghanistan. The Algerian city of Ouargla just set the new recorded high for the entire continent of Africa. This was day before yesterday. No, excuse me, this was a week and a half ago. 124.3 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade. In Texas, multiple cities are reporting runs of 5 or 6 days in a row with temperatures over 100. One day was so hot that the power grid set a new system-wide all-time peak demand record. In an unprecedented heat wave, this is from Daily Kos, a piece by Sherwat Spooner. An unprecedented heat wave in Tokyo, in Japan, has declared the government of Japan has declared a natural disaster. Kumagaya, sitting near Tokyo, is 105.9 degrees Fahrenheit. More than 30,000 people in Japan have been hospitalized for heat stroke. This was as of a few days ago, by the way. In Sweden, 44 wildfires. They're asking all of Europe for help. Heat records are being broken all over Denver, Los Angeles, Montreal, Glasgow, Scotland, Shannon, Ireland, Belfast, Northern Ireland, and many locations in Russia, including Siberia. In the U.S. alone, 9 all-time temperature records have been broken and 10 have tied records. You got boiled bats in Australia, which follows 2017, which is also record-breaking heat. This out of Berlin from the Associated Press. The headline, Animals, Crops Suffering as Europe's heat wave hits new highs. This while the Koch brothers are having their meeting and talking about, gee, we'll reach out to Democrats who agree with our worldview, when their worldview says there's no such thing as global warming because that would cut into our profits from Koch Industries, our oil business. Okay, some region of Germany sweltered in the mercury, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. German Meteorological Office says the country's all-time record, going back hundreds of years, 104.5 degrees. That record was beat on Tuesday. Rivers like the Rhine and the Elbe have soaked up so much heat that fish are beginning to suffocate. In Hamburg, authorities collected almost 5 metric tons, 11,000 pounds of dead fish. Why is this not in our media? Is it because the networks don't want to lose their advertising revenue from Koch Industries? I don't get it. The low levels of water made shipping more difficult with a complete ban imposed on boats on the Oder River. German farmers expect the grain harvest to be 20% smaller this year over the previous year because it has barely rained in the past 12 weeks. Potato farmers are expecting harvest to be 25% smaller. In Poland, they've banned swimming in over 50 beaches because the ocean, the seas have gotten so, the Baltic Sea has gotten so warm that they're having these massive algae blooms that kill people. You swim in this water, you get rash, and in extreme cases you could die. In Zurich, in Switzerland, the police have put special shoes on their police dogs to prevent them from burning their paws on the scorching streets. And Switzerland has also canceled all fireworks. Across Europe, forest fires are causing major damage. 92 people died in Greece a week earlier this month. Temperatures in Spain, 27 of that country's 50 provinces are extreme risk from heat beginning Thursday. In neighboring Portugal, almost 11,000 firefighters and 56 aircraft are tackling forest fires. In the Banach Peninsula, in northern Norway, this is inside the Arctic Circle. It hit 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit, never happened before. In Denmark, the month of July has been the sunniest since they started recording data in 1920. Now, why is that consequential? Because what's going on here is that global warming is breaking down the ice pack in the Arctic, which is basically like, imagine that your house is hot, and so you put in the attic, a giant ice cube, a giant piece of dry ice, and the cool just kind of settles down into your house and keeps you cool, right? But what happens when that dry ice evaporates? What happens when it melts? Suddenly, the house gets really hot, really fast. Well, that's what's happening in the Arctic right now. The Arctic is starting to heat at a rate that is actually logarithmic. You can see this over at arctic-news.blogspot.com. The graphics and all the science on it and links to all the science. And the consequence of that is as the Arctic warms, while the rest of the world is warming, but the Arctic is warming 6 times faster. The consequence of that is that the difference in temperature between the Arctic and where we are, the mid-latitudes, that difference in temperature is diminishing, is decreasing. In other words, the Arctic is not as cold as it was just, say, 5 years ago. And what that's doing is that difference in temperature between the Arctic and these mid-latitudes is what creates this wall of cold air that flows around the world at about 100 miles an hour called the jet stream. Well, the jet stream is no longer rigid. The jet stream is no longer a stream. It's become a loopy, wavy thing that is dropping all the way down to the equator and then all the way back up again and traveling these long, long paths. It's still moving fairly fast, but traveling those long paths, it's moving horizontally across North America and across Europe and across Asia much more slowly, which means that severe weather, whether it's heat or drought or rain, lasts longer and does massively more damage. Meanwhile, the Huffington Post is reporting, the headline, fossil fuel industries outspend clean energy advocates on climate lobbying by 10 to 1. This is between 2000 and 2016. The study's author, sociologist at Drexel University, Robert Broll, says public opinion is pretty much a minor factor in deciding what Congress is going to do. Why? Because the expenditures on federal lobbying aimed at climate issues topped $2 billion during the years of that study, 2000 to 2016. He downloaded nearly 2 million publicly available lobbying files collected by the Center for Responsive Politics to nail this stuff. This is why you're not hearing about this in the media. Why the wildfires in California are being treated like some weird anomalous thing. Gee, when did that start? And nobody's putting, you know, I listen to the BBC every night to get to sleep, and my BBC podcast a couple days ago, the opening story was there are over 700 wildfires burning in North America. North America, from Canada, from the Arctic Circle to Mexico, is on fire because of climate change.